Hi, I'm Julie. Let's talk about the difference between tarot cards and oracle decks. I know at the beginning of my journey with all of these things, I was very confused about the two. So let's talk about the difference. It's probably easiest really to start with an oracle deck. So an oracle deck, I've got a lot of decks here to kind of show you. An oracle deck can have any number of cards in it. It can have as few as it wants to, but usually at least 18 cards. And it can have many, many cards. It can have 70 or 80 cards in a deck. And the idea with the oracle cards is that it's sending you a message, and every oracle deck is going to have its own theme. So I have a deck here that I've used for years called the Goddess Guidance Oracle Cards. And I'll put links to all these decks in the description. And so this particular deck focuses on goddesses from all over the world and all different cultures, and each one represents different aspects of self. And I love to use this deck to get a message all the time. So here's one. So this is Ishil, the medicine woman. And so if you draw this card, the message for you is you are a channel for divine healing power. And this card actually has come up for me a lot with sharing this kind of journey more out loud. Okay, and let's see, here's another one. Oh, this is a cool one. Arcana is blossoming. I'll show you the card there. And the message is you are just getting started. Have patience with yourself and the process and do not give up. So that just gives you, some examples here that we've got Guinevere and Pele and Damara and Sarasvati and Hathor and Dana and Athena and Mother Mary, Mawu. There's so many wonderful goddesses from all over the world here. And usually oracle cards have like a small message or just a couple of words at the bottom, but the real gold's going to be in the guidebook. So in the guidebook, let's just see Ishil, for example. I could go to her page. There she is. And so it kind of repeats that message that was at the bottom of the card, but then it's got so much more. So the message from Ishil is commanding power is not the same as demanding it. Demanding it comes from a childlike place akin to a tantrum based upon the fear that it might be withheld. Commanding is based on the sure and steady knowledge that you are part of the Great Spirit's grace and wisdom. And it goes on. And typically it's going to have some various meanings or keywords for that card. So it just gives you a really beautiful message. Okay, and then let's see, here's another one that I really like. There's a very different vibe to this deck, but this is the Wisdom of the House of Night. Just kind of showing you the cover here. And this one is more kind of attributes that you're going to find in this oracle deck. And so you're going to have this beautiful one. It's cycles, and so the visual is the cycles of the moon. You can see that. And it talks about how we're all always in a cycle. Let's see. Loyalty. So maybe you're being asked to examine loyalty in relationships that are coming up. This one is love. Right. So they could be anything. And so if you're looking to find an oracle deck, you're just going to find one that appeals to you, that has the themes that you like. And a lot of it, I feel, is based on the visual. Do you really connect with the visual aspects of those cards? And if so, then it might be a great deck for you to explore. Okay, let's transition and talk about a tarot deck. So tarot deck is very structured. There is a very specific kind of set of rules that constitute something being a tarot deck. Now, the imagery can be widely varied. I've seen tarot decks that every single card was like a cat picture, and I've seen some where all the cards were represented by different kinds of crystals, and I've seen ones that are based on ancestors, and so it's like very Victorian type imaging. I mean, the imaging can be all over the map, but the structure of the cards themselves is very set. So a tarot deck is going to have exactly 78 cards. Those cards are split into two groups, the major and minor arcana. The minor arcana are basically the exact same structure as a playing deck of cards. There's going to be 4 suits. Each of those suits represents an element. So let me just show you with a very traditional Wiser Tarot. If you're just getting started, this is a fantastic deck to get started with because it's the most traditional imagery. And so you can kind of get familiar with the traditional imagery and then branch out from there. Okay, but the 4 elements that are going to be represented in that minor arcana is going to be the wands, which represent fire and action, the suit of swords, which is going to represent air, the element of air and thinking, so very much in the mind, the suit of pentacles, which is very much about safety and grounding and home and more tangible type things. And then the suit of cups, which is going to represent water or emotional elements. So just like a deck of playing cards, you're going to get the ace through king of the suit. So each of the wands, the sword, the cups, and the pentacles are all going to get an ace through king. Instead of being called the jack, that card's usually referred to as the knight of that suit. Okay, but the tarot deck has an added element, that major arcana, and these cards are special cards that represent the hero's journey. So you might have talked about this in one of your literature classes at some point. The hero is usually a person who starts off on a quest with these very big ideas. We're gonna go save the day. You can think Lord of the Rings here, right? So if you think Lord of the Rings, and they're heading off from the Shire, they're full of hope, they're full of expectation. Everything is pretty good in their world at that moment when they're first striking off. They're still kind of in Hobbiton, right? Nothing bad has happened. They've got their backpack full of supplies and they've got their mission and they're going ahead. And that card and that energy is represented in the first card of the Major Arcana deck, which is the Fool. And they're all numbered, so the Fool is his number is 0, or hers, depending on the deck that you're looking at. And then this Fool, and it's not a fool because he's an idiot. He's a fool because he's just not bothered. He's not considering all the bad things that can happen. He's just full of expectation. And so he's going to go through a lot of lessons. He's going to learn a lot of things about himself, about others, about the world, the good, the bad, the ugly, the difficult, the amazing. And at the end of this journey, we're going to land on card number 21, which is traditionally represented as the world. And if you're able to see this card, if you look in the 4 corners, it's traditional that there is something that is representing all 4 elements of the minor arcana. So the water, the swords, the pentacles, the fire or the wands. It's going to be represented in all 4 corners. And it's usually the person in the middle is represented in this kind of like very angelic or very powerful, a powerful self sort of imagery. So this is, the Fool has become self-actualized at this point. He has been through his hero's journey. If you think about Lord of the Rings again, right, it gets really, really bad and dark and murky there at one point, but then we get our satisfying resolution at the end, and the hobbits are very different than when they started. Okay, very, very different energy than when they started because they've learned a lot and they've experienced a lot, and so has the Fool on this journey. So there's a lot to learn in that, in all of the cards of the deck, but it's kind of split into, it's split into the journey and then kind of the lessons down in here of how to learn those lessons, the things to keep in mind, the things to action on, when to move, when to rest, when to re-examine this, when to go back to the basics over here, when to charge forward. So the major arcana oftentimes represents a lot of ideas, and the minor arcana represents a lot of action, and sometimes that action is rest, okay, but it's giving us kind of that advice of how to go about dealing with our daily challenges. So in conclusion, both types of decks are trying to communicate messages to you about things that are coming up in your life that need to be examined, or maybe just loving messages from your higher power, whether that's God or the universe or source or what have you, telling you that you're doing a good job and to keep going. There can be a lot of messages there. So we'll talk about all those messages in future videos because we are going to go through the entire tarot deck together. Whoop, whoop. Very excited about that. So tell me in the comments, do you prefer oracle decks or tarot decks? Many people have a strong preference for one or the other. Do you prefer one because you don't really understand the other right now and you'd kind of like to explore that other type of deck? Just tell me all the things in the comments. Make sure you subscribe so that you never miss my videos, especially if you would like to learn more about tarot, because I've got a big playlist for that one coming up. And when it's ready, I'll add it here so you can go ahead and check it out. All right, see you next time.